Hello out there, Caniac Nation. Thanks for joining us for session 52 of CaniacSessions. I'm Griff,
And I'm AB.
and happy Friday to everybody out there. Thanks for hanging out with us on your Friday evening, making us a part of your weekend to get it kick-started here. So a little bit of things to talk about. But first things first, before we do, we are brought to you by DraftKings and BetterHelp. As a member of THPN, that's the Hockey Podcast Network, we are also promotional partners with SeatGeek. First-time ticket purchasers can log on to SeatGeek.com, sign up for an account, and on your first ticket purchase, if you use promo code CaniacSessions, that's one word, no space between Caniac and Sessions, you can get $20 off your first ticket purchase. So take advantage of that. It helps us, it helps you, and it helps SeatGeek. All right, AB, big day today, dude.
It is a big day.
You know what today is?
I do know what today is. I just wanted to, say something. I know you'll probably say something. Me and Griff came up with this idea about a year ago to start a podcast and didn't have any traction. And now on X, we have over 1,000 followers and we have very loyal listeners that listen to us. And, we're having so much fun. Griff has become a really good friend of mine and we just have a lot of fun. And for people watching and listening, we just can't thank you enough, sincerely. So, great year and many more to
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, absolutely. Today, right? Today is the 1-year anniversary of our first recording, which was session 1 today, and then we released it on July 27th last year, right? So today is kind of like our first year anniversary. Great year. Like AB said, like we met at PNC Arena. I had no idea who this guy was before I got my seats in section 115. Met him because he sat right in front of me. And then, we went through a whole season, kind of got to know each other. And then, I remember you texting me saying, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" I was like, "Bro, I can't do no podcast." Here we are. So, yeah. So I remember our very first session we were talking, I remember it being Aho's birthday. He just signed his extension. The Canes had just extended their lease, right, with PNC Arena, and we knew they were going to stay. And then, all this news started coming out about the upgrades and the development around the arena and all that stuff. So we've covered a lot, man. We've covered the entire season and the entire 23-24 season, the playoffs. We've covered the Gensel Kuznetsov trades, watching Michael Bunting come in and go, this round of free agency, all kinds of stuff. We've had guests, right? We especially really want to thank our guests that have been on this past year: Adam Gold, Mike Maniscalco, Wade Minter, Shane Willis, Dennis Cox, and then even our boy Mikey, host of the Bar Down Breakdown, that we brought in to do our
Islanders preview.
Yeah, our Islanders preview. The guy that said that Kyle Clutterbuck was going to be the
X Factor.
Yeah, but anyway, thanks to all of our guests. We've made some good friends doing this.
Two important ones.
Well, right, I'm getting to that. I said we made some good friends through this. Obviously, Brandon from the Warning Take, we met him through this podcast. The Sams from Caniac Report, who we also met through this podcast. Also, the Caniac Report's also part of the network with us. And so, met those guys. We've all become, a good group of friends. They're all great, even though me and Sam Driscoll we pretty much disagree on literally everything, but it's all in fun, right? It's all good. So, and then the listeners, all you guys out there, the loyals, obviously this wouldn't be anything without you guys. So we really appreciate it. I'm not going to call any of the listeners out individually because I'm too afraid I'd miss somebody. But yeah, what a year. Looking forward to continuing this and keep it growing. We want to grow. So, having said that, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss an opportunity to listen in, rate us, review us, and tell somebody about us. AB, any more to talk about on our year?
No, I mean, yeah, thanks to Brandon and both the Sams. I've hung out with them in person. You and I both have, and they're such good guys and have given us a lot of perspective on things. Some not so good, like you said with Sam. But all of them were great guys. I've hung out with them individually, and just thank you to all of them, and thank you guys again. It's been really fun. So, and we're gonna keep continuing to chug along.
Yeah, so session 52 at the year mark, that means we have officially averaged 1 episode per week. That's a pretty good pace. We didn't even do that on purpose. That just happened like that. So
That's true. That's true.
So yeah. All right. Well, hey, let's get going. I just wanted to address that, celebrate that for a little bit. And first things first, right? So little bit of news, not a lot, surrounding the Hurricanes. And real quick before I get into this news, our topic today is 88 and 24 contracts incoming. All right. So what
Kobe
we've
Bryant.
done.
What?
Well, not quite. Wrong sport, AB.
Yeah, sorry.
But I mean, love Kobe. Rest in peace. But what we're going to do today at the back end of the session here is I put together some contract projections and some player comparisons and tried to arrive at a median kind of market value number for both guys. And then what we've done is we've kind of taken that a step further, kind of adjusted it for, subjective reasons, and arrived at a final number or prediction, I guess you could say, on what we think the contract is going to come in at. Maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong, but nonetheless, we will explain our thoughts and our process to arrive at that number. I think they're pretty close, and we'll see. But before we do that, a little bit of news. And this is not necessarily surrounding the Canes. However, based upon the speculation and the discussion amongst the fan base and across the NHL, Patrik Laine has been cleared from the player assistance program as of today. The Columbus Blue Jackets have authorized any team that is willing or that wants to explore a possible transaction to bring in Patrik Laine. They've granted them permission to talk to him. So maybe Carolina, is involved. Maybe they're linked, or maybe they're having discussions. Maybe they're not. We don't know. However, Patrik Laine has always been a discussion surrounding the Canes, mainly because he's, that played with Aho at the World Juniors for Team Finland. They went on that great run. And everybody's always explored the possibility of reuniting those two. AB, what are your thoughts on Patrik Laine? Should we or should we not visit Patrik Laine and make that a possibility? Just your general thoughts.
Well, first of all, it's speculation to know why somebody enters the assistance program. It could be mental health, it could be, drug abuse, it could be anything like that. So that situation, obviously, us fans, we don't know about. Only the GMs know about. Laine, like we talked about in a couple of sessions ago, Tarasenko have been rumored to come to Carolina for years.
Right.
It's just one of those things where now you don't know which Patrik Laine you're going to get, because it could be somebody who is totally different to how Laine was when he was with Winnipeg and scoring, and the number 2 overall pick, I believe, or third, I can't remember, in his draft. So,
Right.
You can take a chance on him if you really wanted to. Yes, there is a lack of scoring on this roster. However, I think new guys can emerge from our group right now. And I wouldn't be opposed to Laine. It's just a matter of what player he's going to be like in training camp and throughout the regular season. And again, his contract is pretty big.
Right.
So you also have to take that into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was involved in a conversation earlier on X. I believe it was with Brandon on the warning from the warning take. I don't know if I was just responding to one of his comments on someone else's post, but they were just talking about, the possibility of bringing in Laine and what it would take. And I just raised the question, like, can we afford him even with salary retention? Even if Columbus were to retain 50% of that salary, could we still sign him or bring him, or excuse me, trade for him, right? Assuming that you trade futures and prospects and no current roster players, which it sounds like Columbus is kind of okay with that and the direction they want to move in. So would we still be able to afford that? Would that cost Seth Jarvis a long-term contract this offseason? I mean, if you are going to bring in Patrik Laine in a trade to Carolina for futures and
8.7
prospects,
million a year.
right? So divide that in half, and you can't pay Necas and Jarvis, assuming you don't move anybody else out. You can't bring in Necas, or excuse me, you can't sign Necas and Jarvis to what they're worth and still bring in Patrik Laine 50% retained. There's just not the cap space to do it. So what is that? If we were to do that, it would likely mean that you put the Jarvis extension, or excuse me, the Jarvis contract on hold. I mean, that's the only way you could do it, unless you want to. I mean, I saw somebody say trade Burns and bring up Morrow. I mean,
he's not ready yet.
I don't know. That's just what I saw somebody say. I'm not saying I agree with that or disagree with that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. Go.
Don Waddell has given a couple of guys here chances. We saw the whole fallout with Tony D'Angelo. We saw it with, Kuznetsov. And now, he's letting teams talk to Laine. So it may be a different situation. So that literally just popped into my head right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I just don't see this team trading for Patrik Laine. I don't think there's a need. Don't get me wrong, there's a need on the ice, but I don't know if the team views it as a need. I think the team is comfortable with this season being a stepping stone to the future. I think the team knows it. The front office knows it. I think they're okay with it. Now calling this a stepping stone is one thing. It's still a very capable roster, and they still have the potential. Where two players have from having breakout seasons from making an Eastern Conference final run, in my opinion. I mean, if KK comes out and finds it and rattles off 70 points, Jarvis improves, Necas improves, Svetch has a season like we know he can, there's no reason this team can't go all the way. I mean, seriously, like they still have that potential. I mean, but things would have to fall into place and click, and it would all kind of have to be the perfect storm, no pun intended. But it very well could happen. I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. So I think the team is okay with that. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so, because what I liked about this free agency too is that our blue line didn't get worse, in my opinion. And what I always like, especially old school hockey, you have a guy like William Carrier, who is a kind of like Stephen Mason, but if he has a year like he did in Vegas where he scored 17 goals, you have pieces there, because
Absolutely.
again, a lot of these guys have experience. Carrier won a Stanley Cup. Jordan Staal's won one. Aho has been close. Svechnikov has been close. Jarvis has been close. And I think, with this group of guys, it's not just a 1-year deal bond and they leave. All these signings are term.
For the most part, right.
Yeah, so I think they understand now that, even though it may seem like we took a step back, it also seems like that we brought in a really good group, kinda like 2019
Yep,
a little bit, and, they could shock everyone,
they
which I'm
could.
hoping is the case.
Absolutely. And if they don't, if they don't, and that's fine. I mean, this is a stepping stone to next year when you have a ton of cap space, right? You have enough cap space next offseason to be dangerous, to really sign some high end free agents to add to the
Mhm.
core. And then you've got, everybody that's leaving that we're gaining the cap space from their exit, they have a replacement already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So everything that we do next offseason is an addition. It's basically a want and not a need. And
Mhm.
that is a very dangerous position to be in from the outside, right?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I'm okay with passing up on Nikishin. Excuse me, I read Nikishin in the
I was
chat.
about to say, I was
No,
about to come through the screen.
hold on. I was reading the chat and somebody just said something about Nikishin, so I'm okay with passing up on Laine. Um, yeah, I don't think it's necessary to go out and get somebody else. I'm fine with rolling this roster with what we have, and obviously after getting the Necas and Jarvis contracts complete.
Mhm.
Moving on from that, now we'll kind of start transitioning into the main topic of this session, and that's Martin Necas and Seth Jarvis. And if you follow us on X, you noticed that, well, you probably noticed that there was an article written by a Czech media outlet that I basically copied and pasted into Google Translate just so I could understand what it was saying, because it had Nature's quotes in it. I translated it through Google Translate, and it was enough to basically get the gist of the article. And I shared that on X so everybody could also read what was said. And what the article basically was is a basically Nietzsche sharing his thoughts on the current situation with his contract and the possibility of reaching arbitration, which is currently scheduled for August 4th.
Yep.
And so basically, the article goes through, and there's, I won't sit here and read the entire article, but um, there's a couple things that I picked out from it that kind of stood out to me, that kind of shapes his, well, it helps you understand how his mentality is approaching this situation.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the quotes I'll read here is, he's talking about the possibility of staying in Carolina, going through arbitration, all that. And he says, quote, "No matter how it turns out, I will be satisfied and excited for the new season. In it, I will want to prove that I can be a better player. I guess I expected it to be complicated. And it's good that there is an option for arbitration. If you can't agree with the club, they will give you a price somewhere in between, which is fair for both of you. If it turns out that way, I won't have a problem with it and we'll go into the season." End quote. Now, this is, again, translated from Czech through Google Translate to English, so it may not be word for word, but you get it, right? So that just shows right there, because that's what we were kind of worried about. If he gets forced to stay here, assuming that he really did want to trade, right? Like his dad said in that interview after the playoffs, what would his mentality be like? Would he be disgruntled? Would he be, angry? What kind of Martin Necas would we get? And this quote kind of addresses that, right? He will be happy with it, and he'll go into the season with the Canes, which looks like is going to be the case. Moving on here through the article, another quote says, quote, "Like I said before, I'll come over there." And this is in, let me back up here. This is in, reference to his arbitration hearing. He says, "Like I said before, I'll come over there, listen to how bad of a player I am, then we'll sign a contract and shake hands. And then it indicates that he smiled when he said that. So he understands the business side of it. That's good to hear from a fan's perspective. AB, your thoughts?
Like you were talking about with his dad too. Like, you can't trust, uh, even though that they're close to the player, obviously by blood. That person speaks for themselves, and it kind of worries me that he is willing to, you know, pretty much say with arbitration, they're going to throw me this money. And then if another team has a better offer, I'm still going to do great at any other club. But just to say that comment about the other teams, it just doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. However, I've seen interviews with Tulski where Necas has been offered a year deal to 8 years. So, I really don't know how to feel about it. August 4th is going to be very interesting. I just don't have a lot of information about everything. We've heard stuff. We heard that interview, like you were talking about from Necas. It's just too early to really tell, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, and we'll get into this when I give my projection here, but I don't necessarily think the relationship between the team and Necas is as bad as some have let on. I think Martin Necas would be open to signing long term in Carolina, and this quote here from the same article kind of reassures me that my thoughts are kind of on the right track.
Okay,
and this is talking about this is kind of talking about like, how do I put this? So we thought that he wanted to play center, he wanted to play the top line, he wanted to play big minutes, all this stuff. And I've said all along, I don't believe Necas is a center. I think he needs to own the right wing, make that his, be the best right wing forward he can.
Which he has.
Right. And here's the quote that kind of, I don't know if I buy the whole I want to play center stuff. Yes, he said that before, but I don't know if it's as big of a deal as some have let on. And this is why. He says, quote, "I would like a bigger position in the team, just like any other player. I think 2 years ago, my position was better than last year. I want to get back to a role in the power play where offensive players are at their best." End quote. That says nothing about center. That says basically 2 years ago, he was in every situations forward. He was on the power play. He was on the penalty. He was killing penalties. He was top minutes, I think third on the team in minutes, 5-on-5. And then last year, the roster was a little bit better. We brought in some big names, and his role on the team and the emergence of Seth Jarvis.
Yep.
His role on the team was diminished a little bit, and he didn't necessarily like that. But he has that opportunity now. He has the same opportunity to play like he did 2 seasons ago. And I think that the team wants him. And I think he wants the team, but he just wants to have the same role he had 2 years ago. And that's very possible. If he can come in this year and, produce like he did 2 seasons ago, I think he will be a mainstay in the top 6.
He also has a really good opportunity since Gensel left.
Right.
Because if we signed him, he would be in the same spot that he's in right now.
Absolutely.
So obviously Rod's probably going to bring him up on that first power play unit, wondering which players move where. And he's going to get a lot more playing time. And I don't think a lot of Hurricanes fans understand this. And, I didn't at first. But he's going to get a lot more playing time. He's going to be one of our top 4 goal scorers.
Yeah.
In my opinion, if he stays, it's going to be pretty good. So at the end of the day, I think Canes fans need to, calm down. Right. I was one of them where I wanted him gone. I wanted Necas gone.
So did I,
But
like 3 seasons ago. Yeah.
But if he has the minutes like he's going to get this year, if he signs here, hopefully he does, it's going to be game over because you're going to see another 70-point season from that dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Last line I want to cover from this article, and then we'll move on. And this is another indicator that I believe that he would sign long term here. The article is talking about how Eric Tulsky took over for Don Waddell 5 weeks ago, and then it talks about how Eric Tulsky has submitted a 1-year deal proposal and has also submitted longer proposals, like an 8-year proposal. Necas's response to that, right, that line about the 8-year proposal was, quote, "It was close to my idea, but we still haven't agreed." And then he says, "Negotiations are ongoing. No one wants to go to arbitration. However, it remains to be seen whether it will be agreed upon." So to me, that sounds like he would entertain an 8-year contract. Does it not?
Yeah, it sounds like it, but I know fans are kind of nervous, especially I've seen Twitter posts of like today's a great day to sign Seth Jarvis, but you also have to think about you have a guy like Marty Necas and Seth Jarvis, where those are two people. I mean, I obviously like Necas's response to that, and it seems like he wants to be here, but in the sense, it seems like he also doesn't because of the top minutes and everything like that. But what I said before, once you presented this question, the question before this, he can get the minutes. He
Yeah.
can,
Yeah, absolutely.
and if he signs a 8-year deal, that's great. If it goes a different way, it'll suck. But now actually listening to it, what you just said, it kind of seems like maybe he's leaning 60% to Carolina and 40% to other teams.
Well, maybe. I think if the team gave him a deal that
It's all about the money.
pretty much if the team basically, if there's some kind of agreement, if there's some kind of talk, I'm sure they're talking, right? Like, hey, why don't you come back? We'll give you a bigger role. You're going to play on the top power play this year. There's a need. You're going to kill some penalties this year. There's a need. Like let's work on this. Sometimes you got to take some, you got to give some, whatever. And hey, come back for this amount of money. I think that could happen. But then on the other end of the spectrum, I could see a 1-year deal. Then he plays it out, or 2-year deal, because we own his rights for 2 more seasons. 1 or 2-year deal, depending on if they want to do this again next offseason. And then just let him hit unrestricted free agency in 2 seasons, and then go where he wants. So
Just have a little sample size.
yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I could see them, and I have a hunch that we are going to sign Martin Necas long term. I would. I'd love to keep him here for a long time, because look, he's not getting any younger. He's 25 years old. If he signs a 3-year deal or a 2-year deal right now, you're pushing 27, 28. Then what? You have one more opportunity to cash in. If you sign an 8-year deal now, you still have another opportunity to have a second. Maybe he goes 6 years. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. Enough about that. We're going to get into these contract projections. But before we do that quickly, we are going to hear from our first sponsor, AB. Session 52 is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes I tend to compare my life to others. Does social media play a part in that? What do you do when you get caught up wishing your life looked like someone else's? Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on Instagram, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. I've benefited personally from therapy, and I've talked about it before, right? Even in the last session. But whether or not you've been in therapy personally, I can vouch that therapy actually does work. So, for example, it's helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries, and it empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma or things like that. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. All right, AB, we're back.
We are back and better than ever.
That's right. All right, let's get into these contract projections. I'm excited.
So am I. I'm curious.
You're curious.
I am curious.
All right,
Stop.
so, huh?
Stop.
No comment. All right. So we'll start with none other than Martin Necas, like we've been talking about. So what we tried to do here was identify 3 players from the NHL that we believe is comparable to Martin Necas. Now, it's not necessarily a year-for-year comparison, right? What we tried to do is we tried to look at comparable players in the years leading up to their contract, right? Their big contract, similar to the path that Necas is on. And this first slide here, it shows, Martin Necas' stats from the 2021 season all the way up through this past season. It shows his, the games played, his goals, assists, total points, everything, his goals per 60, his points per 60. And you can kind of see there, the progression he's had. We see the 22-23 season, which was his best season to date, that he led the entire team in points, played a full slate of 82 games, and then had a better year in the playoffs in 22-23, right? So 7 points in 15 games. And then I thought in 23 and 24, he really turned it up in the playoffs with 9 points in 11 games. So he's gotten better over the years in the playoffs. That was always you
got it.
What's the word I'm looking for here? That was always like a knack on him, right? He wasn't very good in the playoffs. But I thought he had a really, quietly had a good playoffs this past year, even though we exited in the second round. So he had, I still thought he had a good season last year in 23-24. 53 points is not bad. Scored plenty of goals, but he just didn't have the flair that he had 2 seasons ago. Remember when he was like Mr. Clutch in overtime? I mean, scoring game-winning goal after game-winning goal. He had a little bit of that this past season, but I thought 2 seasons ago was really, I don't even think it was the ceiling, but it was up there, right?
The median.
Right. So currently Necas is 25 years old, right? He's coming off of a 2-year, $3 million average annual valued contract, right? So 2 years, $6 million total. He is arbitration eligible as a restricted free agent. And that means basically either we sign him to a contract between now and August 4th, which is his scheduled arbitration date, or we trade him or something like that. So moving on here, our first comparable player is Jordan Kyrou, who is a right wing with the St. Louis Blues. Jordan Kyrou signed an 8-year, $8.125 million contract on September 13th, 2022. And, I picked Kyrou because if you look down, and some of this is getting cut off by our little graphics down here, but you can see it for the most part. If you look at Kyrou, I feel like he had, kind of a similar progression year over year in the 3 years before signing his contract. Well, I take that back. So let's see, he signed in the 22 offseason. So after the 20, yeah, so that's right. I just felt like he kind of had a similar progression like Necas did, right? Maybe a little, maybe a little bit better. But if you look at his 2021 season, 35 points, then 75 and 21-22. And then he signed his contract before the 22-23 season, right? So he extended the year before his final year of his last contract. And then in 23-24 is when that contract took effect. So we're really looking at, for Kyrou, we're really looking at the 21-22 season. And that's in this top chart here, right? So we see Kyrou's numbers, and in the bottom chart, that's still Martin Necas. So if you kind of look at his stats and his points, and some of the more detailed statistics, he kind of follows a similar progression to Necas. One may argue that Kyrou is still, a little bit higher than Martin Necas, which I would tend to agree with. And I kind of took Jordan Kyrou as kind of the top of the range, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. You also have to think too is that the Blues aren't very good. If any Blues fans are listening to this, I'm sorry. He's gotten the playing time.
Yeah.
Necas did when he had that 70-point season, and then this year he didn't. It was a little bit downwards, especially with Jake Gensel, Seth Jarvis emergence, like we talked about previously.
Mm-hmm.
But his dip was very smaller. So, I mean, I like the comparison. Kyrou is a very good player. He's probably their best player. But it just, I don't know. That's not the player I would pick. But
Well, yeah, I'm trying to
really
get it.
see a comparison contract wise.
Well, I'm just trying to get a range, right? Basically a low end, a mid level, and then a high end. I think Kyrou would be my high end in Necas comparables. So moving on to the second comparable, Brock Besser, who is a right wing Vancouver, who had a really, really, really good season this past year, his best season in the NHL. But we're not really looking at this past season, more so the years leading up to signing his contract. So Brock Besser is currently on a 3-year by $6.65 million contract. He signed it on July 1st of 2022. And if you look down at his stats, right, this top chart here, you see his progression, which is kind of, a lot lower. His, statistics are a lot lower than Martin Necas. And I would argue that Martin Necas to this point has had the better production. And this is what I would consider the low end, right, of the little bracket that we're trying to create here. But, similar player, similar role that he plays on his team. And yeah, your thoughts on this comparison, AB?
I like the contract. Obviously, 3 years, 6.65. But what really stands out is Necas can score.
Mm-hmm.
He can.
Yeah.
When you look at Brock Besser, it feels like it's mostly goals and not all around play like Necas is on goals and assists and zone entries. But the contract would be something that I would take immediately. And Besser's a good player. Necas is a really good player. He's definitely above Besser. So I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, this is kind of
Yeah.
the floor for me, right? This is kind of the lowest, and you know, I understand the years are 3 years, but
Mhm.
you know, more focused on the cap hit, right, of
Mhm.
6.65 million. That's where I see the floor at for Necas.
Okay.
So, and again, I'm going to get to my formula here and how I adjusted all this, but I did adjust everything for the salary cap increase over the years. We'll get to that in a couple other slides when we start narrowing down his value, in my opinion. And again, real quick, all of these charts and stats are all from Puckpedia.
Rest in peace to the
To
to
cap
the
friendly. Yeah,
yeah. Gosh, that sucks.
it does. But you know, I'm getting the hang of Puckpedia here. We're getting there.
Yep, that's
All
right.
right.
We're getting there. We're trying.
Comparable number 3, Troy Terry, right
Yes.
wing from Anaheim. And this is kind of right in the middle where I see Martin Necas. I think Troy Terry is most comparable to Martin Necas of all 3 of these players. And if you look at their statistics, well, real quick, Terry is on a 7-year, $7 million valued contract signed last offseason on August 2nd, 2023. So again, if you look at his progression in his statistics, it's very, very close to Necas's kind of progression as well. So as far as these 2 players, again, I think they have similar roles on their respective teams. I think they do a lot of the same stuff. And so this is kind of what I see as the middle ground on a Necas contract. What do you think?
This is my favorite comparison, contract and player. 7 years, $7 million. That's, I believe, what Necas is worth. Now, Troy Terry is a center slash right winger.
Mm-hmm.
He's now moved into the right winger role, and if you look, 2021, 2022 season, the dude scored 37 goals. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe his points aren't there, but, you know, he's steady. He's steady progression. And especially with the Ducks, you know, rebuilding, you know, trying to figure out, it seems like, they are very similar. It's just Necas is quicker.
Yeah.
And I believe Necas can get to the over 30 goal mark and can be viable like Troy Terry. Again, Troy Terry is statistically, I believe, a little bit better on the faceoffs, but right
Yeah.
wing
Yeah.
for what
It's
he's
not hard to do.
for what Terry's doing on the right wing and Necas. I mean, it's very similar. And you know, if I was Tulski, I would offer this exact same contract.
Well, so what I've done is I have taken these 3 players and I developed a kind of weighted average formula, right? I didn't like detail the formula because, well, one, a lot of the you can't really type a formula on a keyboard too well. So,
Well, that happens.
yeah. So I'll explain kind of the way I figured this up. So what I did is I took all 3 contracts, ignoring the term and just looking at the cap hit. And I've taken those and I've adjusted them all for cap increase. So basically took the percentage of the salary cap when they signed the contract and I adjusted it to the percentage of what it would be at 88 million for the upcoming salary cap. Mm-hmm. Then I took that percentage for the current salary cap and I basically found new average annual values by taking the, you know, that percent of 88 million. Then I took the new values and I weighted them based upon who I thought was the most comparable, right? So Troy Terry, I weighted a 3. Jordan Kyrou, I weighted a 1. And who was the other one?
Gosh, what was his name? It slipped. Yeah,
oh, Brock Besser.
Yeah, that's it.
And I also weighted Brock Besser a 1, right? So I basically gave Troy Terry a 3, Besser and Kyrou 1s. And then I found the weighted average, taking that adjusted cap and then the player similarity into consideration. And then I found what I thought the median value was, or the weighted average, or whatever you want to call it. And what I came up with was 7.21 million would be the cap hit, which is just over 8.2% of the cap based on the comparables. So this 7.21 million is, again, kind of the middle. Then my thinking, then I add my subjective brain into this. And I allowed myself to have $500,000 above 7.2 and $500,000 below 7.2. Do I have reasons to lower that 7.2? Yes, I think I do. Right? The fact that 3 seasons ago we were ready to send him to Arizona. I mean, he was having a rough year. His turnovers, sometimes he's a puck management nightmare. His face-off percentages, things like that. But then, then on the other side, I was like, well, do we have a case to raise this on the other side of 7.2? He's clutch in clutch situations. He's automatic in overtime. He's, a great skater. He is one of the most skilled forwards in the NHL. I mean, got to be top 15. And so, but at the end of the day, I thought that the negatives kind of outweighed the positives. And I just don't believe Necas will be above $7 million at the end of the day. So I settled on a $6.75 million annual value on an 8-year contract. And again, this is just a hunch. I think he's signing long-term.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not 8 years. Maybe it's 6, 5. But I consider long-term anything 4 and above.
Yeah, nothing really to add to that. Like I said just a little bit ago, I liked 7 years, 7 million.
Yeah.
I think his ceiling is 8 years, 7 million. I like the 6.7 contract. He's just not worth over $7 million, to be honest. Because yes, he's had a great couple of years. He's solid. Again, he's a very skilled forward. But you look at a guy like Necas, and then you look at Sebastian Aho. Again, they're totally different levels. And Aho took a 6 years, $6.2 million deal, something like that, and proved himself.
Mm-hmm.
And now
Was
he's
it 6
making
point? I think it was a little bit less than that, wasn't it? I don't remember.
I'm not sure. It may have
That's
been
fine. It's
Tavo that
close.
was
It's
sick.
close.
Yeah, whatever. But now Aho's making 9.7. So
Right.
I think this is a nice contract to bridge. And then if he wants to stay in Carolina and he gets better and continues to evolve as a player, we're probably looking at a Aho situation.
Well, yes, but the age is a factor as well. So he's 25 now. So that is going to play not that 25 is old. It's just 25 is a weird age for, contract purposes. It's kind of right there where, if you sign long-term, it could be your last opportunity to cash in. Because you're looking at 33 years old at the end of it, kind of like a Jordan Staal situation. Are you going to sign 1-year contracts on the back end of that? Or, what's it going to be? Or do you sign a 3-year contract, get yourself to 28 years old? Then you're looking at kind of like the Elias Lindholm situation where you can sign long-term and that'll get you through your 30s. So, it just depends at the end of the day on what the player wants, what he thinks he can get, somewhere else. But I just have a hunch, man. I think he's going to, maybe it's not 8 years, but I just have this feeling after all of this back and forth and negativity and, I'm not bickering. I don't know what to call it, but, just this, just this negativity surrounding Martin Necas over the last few years and even beyond that as a Carolina Hurricane. I just think they'll figure it out. I think Necas likes it here. He's got friends here, and there's something to be said about that, and the comfort and the predictability and all that good stuff. So we will see. Let us know in the comments if you agree with this prediction. Let us know what your prediction is. And while we're on the comments, let's just go through some of them here and get caught up before we continue on here. Brandon from the Warning Take. Sup, boys? Glad you guys pulled up while watching, or got you guys pulled up while watching the Braves. What's up, Brandon?
He's struggling right now.
Yeah, Brandon's fresh off the operating table, got his nose fixed.
That's right.
Got that thing straightened out so he can breathe better.
He wanted that Michael Jackson lift.
Glad you're doing good, buddy. And again, like I told you on X earlier, glad you've been on this ride with us for a year. Here's to more. All right.
100%.
Papa Griff made it. Yeah,
That's
he didn't
right.
think he was pushing the time to make it 7:30, but I guess he made it in time.
Oh, does he get a warm glass of milk and go to bed at this time?
oh boy. Oh boy. He's gonna get you for that.
Sorry. I know, but say
he's gonna get you for that one. Oh, all right. BTS, not the band. What's up, buddy? Glad you're with us again. Sam got destroyed in that poll. And he must be talking about the Warning Takes poll where we had no context, Griff or Sam. You're right. Sam did get
the results.
it was like 67% to like 33.
Oh boy.
I crushed it, man.
You did.
I don't even know why, but it's fine. No big deal. No big deal. BTS again, congrats on 1 year. Thanks, brother. We appreciate it. Papa Griff again. Leave him in Columbus. This must be talking about Laine. This is the comment I was reading when I said Necas, we should just leave. Anyway, leave him in Columbus. Necas should be in town next year if I'm understanding his situation right. Yes, Necas will be in town next year, pending any unforeseen circumstances.
Long term.
Yeah.
Long term. It helped that him and Kochetkov and Spesh and Orlov got to talk to him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I don't think Laine is dependent upon Necas. I think Laine is, Laine is a forward, Necas's a defenseman. So I don't really think that matters as much. But yeah, leave him in. Well, he's not going to stay in Columbus. He's going somewhere, but it doesn't have to be Carolina. All right. Warning Take says young chicken. Yes. The Czech translated article referred to Jack Drury as the young chicken.
That's right. And he may become the rooster.
And you know what's funny about this? I saw somebody who speaks Czech retweet, when Adam Gold commented, laughing about the young chicken comment. Somebody that speaks Czech quote tweeted Adam's reply and said, the funny thing is this is not a lost in translation, basically, quote. This is really what the article said in Czech. I don't know. I don't know what they were trying to be. It's just weird. Anyway, Pop says if he's a real pro, he'll do the best he can if he stays. Absolutely. I think that's what he'll do. Excuse me. Ryan Fox, how you doing, bud? Glad you're back. He says congrats on 1 year, guys. Been a big fan for a bit now. Thanks a bunch. Yeah. Hey, Ryan, thanks for listening. We appreciate your support. By the way, drop us a rating and review if you haven't.
That's right.
Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
I know you did.
Ryan says again, Kyrou does well as a blue. Yeah, he does. He's a great player. I like Jordan Kyrou.
Mm-hmm.
Then Ryan says they aren't the best. No, they aren't.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
They're not bad though.
Oh, but they're not the best.
They're decent. No, they're not the best, but they're decent. I mean, given their circumstances.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they're right in the middle.
Yeah. All right, Brandon from the Warning Take says Kyrou stands out on the Blues even when they're not the best. Good comparison. There you go. Pop says 8 by 7.75 for Necas. I think that's the high end.
7.
Say again.
High end is 7.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I mean, I guess there could be a situation.
That's like a Jarvis contract.
Well, we're going to see that next. But
Yep.
I don't know if I'd give him 7 3/4. I mean, I would give him 8x7. I mean, if he stays for 8 years, I may even go up to 7 and 7.25. I mean, that'd be my absolute high.
Yeah. Yep.
Excuse me. All right, BTS. Did you all see the Kuzi Leafs rumors? I did not.
He's going to Russia.
Well, I saw
There's no
rumors that
doubt
there
in
were
my
a bunch
mind.
of. I heard rumors that there were a bunch of NHL teams that were circling back to see if he'd be interested in staying in the NHL.
I don't think he is.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't seen the Leafs rumors. I'll have to check those out. Brandon says Thriller, the Michael Jackson reference that you made about his nose.
That's right.
Papa said, AB, I was just starting to really like you until you made the warm milk joke. He's going to fight you.
He said you set it up perfectly for me, and I just smacked it out of the park.
I mean,
But
that's
your
what I do.
dad's a great guy. Hard feelings. I just had to throw the joke in there. I'll be here the rest of the time we're doing this podcast, folks. So expect more jokes. So it was worse.
Yeah, so Brandon
It's
says
even
in
worse.
reference to that poll, Griff won 75-25. Man, I
I think
apologize.
Brandon needs
I had to say sorry to Sam because I beat him so bad.
I think Brandon needs a warm glass of milk. I think the stuff from the surgery is kicking in. I think he needs to put his head on the pillow. We love you, Brandon, and Papa Griff. Just letting that be known.
All right, AB, let's take a quick break and hear from our next sponsor, and then we'll get on to the Jarvis contract.
Let's do it.
Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See terms and responsible gaming resources at dkng.com/base. All right, we are back again.
I am back with a warm glass of milk.
Man, you're gonna be on that. That one's gonna stick.
Okay.
All right, moving on here. We're gonna get through this one fairly quick. This one's not as complex as Necas, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But this is a contract projection for Seth Jarvis, and I am so glad. Like usually, I'm looking for news like throughout the day, but I'm so glad that a contract announcement didn't drop today because I worked my rear end off on these slides.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I was working on it. I was just knowing.
Breaking news. No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, I'm telling you. I would have been so mad. Anyway, Seth Jarvis. Right? He is a right wing. He's 22 years old, and he is coming off of his entry-level contract, which was 3 years at $894,000 average annual value. Look, Seth Jarvis had a strong rookie. He had a strong rookie year.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth Jarvis, AB, is a grown ass man.
But you're missing one thing.
Freaking leet, AB.
There it is. There it is.
Yes. Had a great first rookie season, right? If you remember back, he was here for camp from the Portland Winterhawks, which was his junior team. And he basically forced his way onto the roster. He played so well and he performed so well in camp that he made Rod Brindamore keep him in Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I remember, I think it was they can play 9 games at the NHL level before they lose their eligibility to go back to junior.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that time and thinking, you know, that everybody was talking about it. You know, he's at his 9-game mark. Is he going back? Is he going to stay? And I just remember telling myself, like, he needs to stay. This guy is just, he's it. Like, he needs to stay. And sure enough, yeah, absolutely. And sure enough, he stayed. His first season, 17 goals, 23 assists for 40 points. And I mean, not a ton of ice time.
Mm-hmm.
Played 68 games. Pretty darn good for a rookie season. You know, especially for somebody, he's a 13th overall pick, wasn't expected to be here. And he comes and provides that. I mean,
thank you, Don Waddell.
Yeah, I mean, look at his points per 60 here. 2.34 his rookie season. Points per 60. Holy cow. Right?
Stud.
And then, you know, next year, the 22-23 season comes. He has a bit of a sophomore slump. He does play a full 82 game slate. You know, he shows his durability. That was a question, right? He's a small guy. 5'10", but I believe he's like 180 pounds, 185 pounds, something like that. Excuse me. And so, you know, the question was durability, and then he rattles off 82 game season plus playoffs. And you know, his production doesn't really fall off. It does in terms of, you know, like points per game, you know, his per 60 stats. You know, he played a lot more minutes and produced the same, you know, given more minutes. So a little bit of a sophomore slump, but you could really see him retool his game to a full 200-foot forward. You saw his defense step up. You saw his all situations abilities step up. I mean, he became the all-around player. And then, you know, look, his production doesn't fall off in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was just under a point per game this past season in the playoffs. And then kind of really scores at the same rate,
mm-hmm.
you know, throughout all 3 seasons he's been in the playoffs. So this guy has unlimited potential. And you're when I was doing these player comparisons, I was like, man, am I really comparing this guy to these players? Well, yeah, because he has the potential to be that. We're going to get into it. Any thoughts on Seth Jarvis before we get through these comparisons?
Only thing I have to say is just pay that man. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, now. Pay him now. Because if we bridge him for 1 year and he comes out and rattles 42 goals off next season,
I'm in it.
Yeah, then we're looking at $10 million. Anyway. All right. First comparable player, none other than his buddy, Andrei Svechnikov. Now, not really the same player, right? But the same team, right? The same scenario coming off of your entry-level contract before you sign your long-term contract. So kind of the same path, so to speak. Andrei Svechnikov is currently on an 8-year, $7.75 million contract. He signed it on August 26, 2021 at the end of his entry-level deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, but to be honest, you know, the numbers really aren't, I mean, they kind of, you know, in a different way, aren't really that far apart.
Mhm.
The top chart here is Andrei Svechnikov. The bottom chart is Seth Jarvis. So if we just want to look at their total points, if you look at Andre 37 his rookie year, Jarvis had 40. Svech had a better second year where he scored 61 with less minutes and less games played. But no, I'm sorry. I looked at that's
You
right.
mean Svech's third year was a little bit of a downfall compared
Well,
to
right, but
Jarvis's.
he was hurt a long time, right? He
Yeah.
only played 55 games that season. But as far as points go, I mean, they in different years, their point production is really not that far off.
Mhm.
There's some difference in the games played, time on ice, things like that, but really not really that far off. But given the fact that they both play the wing for the same organization, I felt that it was comparable. So,
Mhm.
all right, next, David Pastrnak, right, who's currently a right winger from Boston. He's currently playing on he just signed a new deal before last season. I believe it's $11.5
Yeah,
million.
10 million. Yeah, something around there.
I think it's $11.5 million. But I'm looking at his previous contract, which was 6 years by $6.667 million that he signed in the 2017 offseason. Reason I'm looking at that is because he's coming off of his entry-level contract as well.
Mhm.
So the top chart is Pastrnak, the bottom is Jarvis. And I mean, if you look at between these two, Seth Jarvis, you could argue, had a better first 3 years than Pastrnak. I mean, I would say so.
Yeah, but you also have to look at the games too.
You do, right? But again, I think a strength of Seth Jarvis is his durability.
Mhm.
I think that's you could take that into consideration. I mean, I know freak accidents happen, freak injuries happen, but to be able to play, like, the only reason Seth Jarvis didn't play a full slate last season is because they set him in the last game against Columbus, or
Mhm.
else he would have had 82 last season as well. So what I'm trying to show here between these two players is I think Seth Jarvis deserves a higher payday than David Pastrnak had coming off of his entry level deal.
Right.
And look, everybody was talking about Pastrnak his first 3 years in the league, especially that 2016-2017 season.
Uh-huh.
I mean, 70 points. He had 34 goals. Look at Jarvis's previous season: 33 goals, 67 points. That's not far off, So
I
I
hope he
think,
can become Pasternak because he is a monster.
I mean, we will see. He could definitely do it. He could definitely become a Pastrnak type guy, like superstar. Like, I really believe he's got a better personality than Pastrnak, in my opinion. So,
Yeah.
not that personality matters in terms of money, but I'm just saying, as a household name, it kind of does. All right, moving on to comparable number 3, Kyle Connor, who's a left wing for Winnipeg, currently on a 7-year, $7.143 million contract. He signed in the 2019 offseason. Kyle Connor's a great player for Winnipeg. If you look at, and again, his graph is the top, Jarvis is the bottom, and you just look at his progression. That 2016-17 season was his rookie year. He only played 20 games, but then immediately produced in 2017-2018, 57 points, then 66 in 2018-2019. Solid numbers on an entry-level deal. And then bam, he got paid in the 2019 offseason. And he hasn't stopped producing. He's been good his whole career. So you look at a guy like Kyle Connor, I think he's comparable to Seth Jarvis, in terms of his progression and his, ability to keep getting better. And not only do you see it on the score sheet, but you just see it in the eye test as well. Thoughts on any of these three comparables?
I like the Connor one the best.
Yes.
It just seems pretty similar, and again, Connor trends upward, and I think that's going to be the same for Seth Jarvis. So,
Right. So, kind of talking like we did with Necas, my bracket here, I think Kyle Connor is kind of the the middle, is most comparable. I think David Pastrnak is kind of the high end. And I think, it's just as far as the type of player. And then I think Andrei Svechnikov is the lower end, because I honestly believe Seth Jarvis is better than Andrei Svechnikov at this point. So, given that, I use the same technique that I used, the same formula that I used for Necas, the adjusted weighted average, taking the adjusted cap and player similarity into consideration. Came up with my median value, or the market value, is 7.86 million, which is 8.93% of the cap based upon the comparables. Now, then I add my subjective thoughts in there, right? $500,000 below and $500,000 above. Which can I justify? And I think I can justify going higher because of the role he plays on the team. His improvements. He plays in every situation. He's a full 200-foot forward, rarely makes mistakes, has improved in the face-off. He kills penalties. He does it all. Scores on the power play, performs at a high level in the playoffs. No reason that he shouldn't be at the top end. So my prediction for Seth Jarvis's contract is an 8-year by 8.35 average annual value. AB, what are your thoughts?
same thing. Just pay the man. That's all I have to say. Just pay the man.
Yeah, do you think that dollar value is on par?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think he's worth that.
Now, like we talked about before in previous session, reports have been that the team and Jarvis are currently above the $8 million mark. The terms used were north of. So this is kind of my, I feel good about this 8.35. I think he's right around there for 8 years. We'll see. So again, in the chat or in the comments, let us know what you think, and we'll get to them quickly before we get out of here. Papa Griff says Jarvis 8 by 7.95.
More.
That would be great. If we could get him under 8, I would be ecstatic. Not sure that happens. I think it's going to be higher than 8, mainly because of the reports out that negotiations are currently north of 8. But yeah, if we could get him under 8, that'd be great. Another one here. These two guys are young and are going to get better. Pay them and build with them as part of the core. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I don't think
I agree.
I don't think any contract's going to age bad. John Park.
I think that says pork.
Oh, absolutely. John Pork. Will we be goated this year? Is that an achievable natty? I haven't paid attention.
You mean Stanley Cup? But it's possible. Anything's possible.
I mean, like we said in the beginning, a couple players have career years and improve. You never know what could happen.
That's true.
Never know. The Blues won the Stanley Cup in 2019?
Yep.
Or 18?
Didn't expect it. 2019.
19. Yeah. So you never know. All right, last comment here. Papa Griff says, I think the contracts I predicted would age well, especially with salary cap increases in the coming years. Yeah, again, I think that, I think the contracts would age well as well. I don't see, as long as you're not paying these guys $10 million even if you paid Jarvis $10 million, I think it would age well, but I don't think he needs $10 million. So,
yeah.
But yeah, Yeah, I think I'm done after that, AB. Do you have any more thoughts, any more comments?
No, I'll sign us off. Again, thank you so much for listening and watching to session 52 of Caniac Sessions. If you haven't already on YouTube, subscribe to us, comment, let us know what you like, what you don't like. Like the video if you want to. Again, subscribe, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of the live streams of videos we put out on YouTube. You can follow us on any podcast platforms at Caniac Sessions. And you could follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram at Caniac Sessions. If you want to keep up with Griff on X, you can follow him at M_Griff10. And if you want to follow me on X, you can keep up with me at AB Caniac Session. Thank you so much for listening for a year. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you in session 53.
Bye.